In a world where trust is shattered, Anara, a young scientist, finds herself on the cusp of an ancient power that could save Earth from a looming alien threat. As betrayal brews within her ranks and the stakes skyrocket, she must face a chilling question. Can unity triumph when the lines between right and wrong blur in the face of survival? If you dream of entering universes or planets where humans shine when they meet unknown races, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you will be happy every day with new wonderful sci-fi stories. Well, let's go. In the sprawling expanse of New Terra, the city thrummed with artificial life, where neon lights flickered like stardust against the backdrop of the infinite cosmos. The skyline resembled a modern-day Babel, an array of gleaming glass towers working overtime, each structure reflecting the hopes and fears of its inhabitants while the stars twinkled above in oblivion. Amidst this hubbub lay the Aurora Lab, a concealed facility where humanity's last hopes were woven into the narrative of the universe. Within its high-tech walls, the rhythmic hum of machines synced with the pulsating heart of its inhabitants, but inside one room, the air felt charged with a different kind of electricity. It was the charge of desperation. Anara Kincaid was a prodigy of a scientist, a petite, fierce woman with shoulder-length dark hair framing her determined face. Her emerald eyes, usually filled with curiosity and resolve, now bore the weight of the threat looming from the edges of the galaxy. She had dedicated years to understanding the ominous reports about the Zorvaks, an enigmatic and malevolent alien race that had mysteriously begun to shadow Earth's orbit. The fear that gripped her heart was a gnawing, relentless creature. What if her life's work wasn't enough? Anara, Lior's voice broke through her reverie, urgency lacing his words. He was her older brother, a skilled pilot with tousled blonde hair and striking blue eyes that hinted at both warmth and recklessness. Dressed in a slightly wrinkled pilot's uniform from incessant missions, he burst into the lab, his pulse racing. "They're getting closer. I can feel it in my bones." She turned sharply towards him, her heart quickening. "We have no time, Lior. I'm tracing signals that might reveal their intentions. If we act now, we may have a chance to prepare." The shadows danced on the walls of the lab as the faint glow from the consoles illuminated their faces, mingling hope with dread. Yet Anara was entrapped in a web of conflicting emotions. What if their efforts weren't enough? A sudden wave of dread washed over her, igniting her training as a scientist. They were not just racing against alien invaders, they were battling the insidious nature of trust. Was Lior right? Did they have the right allies in this impending chaos? Suddenly, a flickering monitor emitted a series of bright bursts, capturing her attention. The signal's shifting. It feels intentional, like they're probing our defenses. Her fingers danced over the touchscreen, her mind racing through algorithms and predictions, frantically wondering what strategies would render them most vulnerable. Anara, Lior's voice cut through her concentration, a bubbling undercurrent of alarm. "We need to evacuate everyone. If you feel the way I do, we might be running out of time." Her heart sank, momentarily paralyzed by the weight of the impending dread. "We can't leave until we know more about what they want." His hand gripped her shoulder, grounding her momentarily. "And if knowing leads to our demise? You must consider, what is this all for?" That question haunted her, echoing beyond the walls of their lab. The sacrifices they had made were too heavy to carry alone, for wrapped in the scientific pursuit was an understanding. Every exploration came at a cost, often splitting along ethical lines. The sterile corridors of the facility were becoming a labyrinth of suspicion, casting shadows that no amount of artificial lighting could dispel. Anara sat hunched over her monitors, each flicker of the screen reflecting the storm of anxiety in her mind. Data began to blur into a haze, as she mulled over the fragmented information the team had collected on the Zorvaks. Their tactics were ruthless, and their technology advanced. Yet it was the traitor among them that threatened to unravel everything. It was late, the hour when whispers carried the weight of betrayal. Outside the thick glass windows, the stars sparkled coldly, indifferent to the turmoil within. Anara turned towards Lior, who leaned against the metal wall, arms crossed, his brow knitted tight. "Are you sure we can trust anyone here? We've got eyes everywhere," Lior muttered, his voice low and filled with unease. "I can feel paranoia creeping in. It's suffocating." Anara ran a hand through her dark hair, exhaling slowly. "Trust is a rare commodity in desperation. I want to, but..." She let her sentence hang, the dread coiling tighter. Her thoughts trafficked through the possibilities. Anyone could be the mole. Anyone. Suddenly, the tranquility shattered with a clang. An echoing crash resonated through the hallway. Both of them leapt to their feet, adrenaline surging. Anara's heart raced as they hurried towards the source, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. They emerged into a wide-open lab, their eyes widening in horror at the unfolding scene. Dr. Tarek, a respected scientist known for his brilliant but eccentric mind, was engaged in a fierce struggle with shadowy Zorvak agents. Tarek's normally calm demeanor had morphed into savage defiance as he fought against them. "Fools!" he howled, his voice sharp and slicing through the tension. "I've chosen the winning side, and you're too late to stop me." Anara felt the cold grip of betrayal seize her heart. Tarek had been her mentor, a man who inspired innovation, yet here he stood, a traitor colluding with their greatest enemy. "No, Tarek, you can't," she cried out, her voice straining against the tumult. But the Zorvaks proved too powerful. They maneuvered with an unnatural grace, their sleek forms blending beautifully into the shadows. One Zorvak locked eyes with Anara, its gaze piercing and electric, igniting a chilling fear that gripped her spine. It was a predator assessing its prey. In the chaos, a crash sent one of the Zorvaks sprawling. Tarek seized the opportunity to make his escape, darting toward an emergency exit he'd concealed. The remaining Zorvaks exchanged concerned looks, and without a moment's hesitation, one raised a strange, elongated device that emitted a low hum, enveloping the area in an eerie glow. "Get down," Lior yelled, shoving Anara aside just in time as a pulse of energy shot past them, striking the ground where they had stood. Dust and debris enveloped the room, masking the path of their retreating foe. As the dust settled, Anara struggled to process what had just transpired. "We can't let him go," she gasped, desperately clenching her fists. "Who knows what information he holds if he reaches the Zorvaks?" Lior's expression was grim. "Do you think it's too late? He could have already handed over our plans. They knew we'd be vulnerable." His face was pale, revealing the stark reality crashing down upon them. Anara's mind raced. This wasn't merely an act of betrayal, it was a declaration of war. "We have to warn the others. This threat is bigger than we imagined." Their hearts weighed heavy as they navigated back through the facility, moving quickly yet cautiously through the flickering lights and heightened tension. Each step echoed with uncertainty. Their colleagues moved like ghosts, eyes darting, shoulders tense, all under the heavy pall of mistrust. Reaching the central command hub, they found Dr. Irena, a sharp-eyed strategist and the de facto leader of the operation, surrounded by a cluster of anxious researchers. She was mid-sentence, relaying critical information about the Zorvaks' latest maneuvers. But when Anara and Lior burst into the room, the urgency of their intrusion silenced the room. "Dr. Tarek, he's working with the Zorvaks," Anara exclaimed, her voice carrying a tremor of fear. "We have to act fast. He's already betrayed us, and they could be coming for us next." Dr. Irena's expression hardened. "This complicates everything," she said, tapping her fingers against the console. If Tarek has relayed the mission parameters, our preparations may be compromised. We need to secure this facility. What about the others? Lior asked, desperation creeping into his voice. We've built a foundation of trust here, but now. His words trailed off, leaving the unspoken horror hanging in the air. Anara felt the weight of every untrustworthy glance and the suspicion carved into the atmosphere. The ethical dilemma had now expanded. Loyalty was being pitted against survival. Was it worth the risk to reach out to those they might have once considered allies? What if there were more traitors among them? Dr. Irena saw the turmoil in their eyes. For now, we must endeavor to maintain a semblance of unity. Our only chance lies in ensuring Tarek doesn't succeed in compromising our defenses. We can't afford to let fear dictate our choices. But with every passing minute, that trust felt increasingly fragile. As the group dispersed to tighten security measures, Anara exchanged a look with Lior, a silent agreement passing between them. They knew what had to be done. They needed to find Tarek before he could relay any more of their secrets to the Zorvaks. But how could they distinguish friend from foe within the burgeoning chaos? Deep down, Anara worried that now they were facing not just an alien threat but an insidious erosion of their very foundation. Tarek had once been a beacon of knowledge, yet now, shirtless in his betrayal, he represented an upheaval that threatened to shatter their fragile alliances. Hours turned into a frenzy of planning the impossible. As darkness enveloped the facility, Anara paced in her thoughts, trying to piece together what would come next and whether they could indeed trust anyone outside of themselves. The clatter of footsteps echoed in the hallways like ghosts, ones that may very well turn on them at a moment's notice. In the dim light of monitors flickering their delicate blue glow, Anara felt a chill run through her as Lior turned to her. We had to split up to cover more ground. Keep your comms open. With time slipping through their fingers, Anara and Lior prepared for a daring expedition to the uncharted planet, Arcturus Ix, shrouded in legend and mystery. The whispers of an ancient technology, the Genesis Nexus, reverberated in the hushed corners of the galaxy, promising to shift the balance of power in their favor. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but desperation often drives the brave, or the foolish. As their vessel, the Nova Spirit Asterisk, sliced through the cosmos, it was braced against the vast currents of the asteroid belt, a treacherous environment littered with remnants of what was once whole. The ship's dark metallic hull glinted under the stars, its thrusters humming like a heartbeat, an extension of the determination etched across Anara's face. She scanned the viewport with her emerald eyes, awash in the thrill of an adventure that felt like generations condensed into mere moments. Hold steady, Lior. Anara's voice was sharp, cutting through the tension nestled in the cockpit. Her brother, Lior, gripped the controls, his focus steely as he bobbed and weaved the ship amid the unpredictable ballet of cosmic debris. Too many rocks out here. It's a miracle no one has risked landing yet, Lior grunted, sweat beading on his brow. He had always thrived in high-pressure scenarios, his instincts honed through years piloting dodgy freighters through hostile territories. Miracles are just risks waiting to happen, Anara managed, and before she could say more, a shudder reverberated through the craft. Alarms blared as the ship's sensors wailed about incoming threats. Brace for impact, Lior shouted, his hands flaring over the controls, maneuvering the Nova Spirit to dodge a rocky mass that spun unpredictably toward them. Anara's stomach dropped as she felt the ship jolt in response to Lior's command. "I've got it," she exclaimed, focusing her attention on the monitors lining the dashboard, seeking a safe path amid the chaos. "That way. There's a gap between the fields." Her voice melded with the cacophony of alarms as Lior deftly turned the ship in the specified direction. They barreled past the asteroids, the vessel shuddering violently as they barely skimmed the surface of a colossal boulder. With sweat dripping down their faces, they exited the treacherous field, the darkness around them opening up to the serene expanse of Arcturus X. Clear, Lior exhaled, his mouth curling into a grin, though his eyes flickered with the remnants of anxiety. Anara felt her heart settle, yet within her chest burned a deeper sense of urgency. She stepped away from the navigational console and peered out of the viewport, her breath catching as the planet unveiled itself. Arcturus X was a chaotic blend of lavender and emerald, the surface a patchwork of dense forests, towering mountains, and ethereal glows emanating from bioluminescent flora. Beneath those colors, she could sense the nexus of energies permeating through the atmospheric veil. There it is, the ruins, the Genesis nexus should be nearby. Her excitement was palpable, the resonance of the ancient power coaxing her forward. Lior initiated the landing sequence, and the Nova Spirit gently descended onto the surface, dust stirring as they touched down. Anara, Lior cautioned, defensive protocols are still active. We need to be cautious. The landscape may seem beautiful, but who knows what else is lurking here. As the ramp lowered, the air flooded in, warm, teasingly fragrant, and tinged with mystery. Anara stepped outside, a thrill coursing through her veins as the vibrant colors bounced around her, bathed in sunlight that seemed unfamiliar yet welcoming. Each breath filled her lungs with the intoxicating essence of exploration, pulling her further into this alien world. The duo set off toward the ruins, a sprawling complex of walled stone structures, partially overtaken by nature, vines creeping through the cracks. Anara felt a magnetic pull, and it heightened with every step they took. The glyphs etched into the structures whispered stories of a long-lost civilization, their ancient culture interwoven with the very fabric of the nexus they sought. Do you feel that? Anara suddenly stopped, her skin prickling. The energy, it's like a heartbeat. What are you talking about? Lior asked, his brow furrowing as he inspected the symbols lining the walls. It's alive, she breathed, feeling the pulse resonate with her own. She reached out a hand, brushing her fingers across the cool, rough surface. With growing intensity, the nexus surged, a light flickering deep within the ruins, teasing the edge of consciousness, igniting a fervor within her soul. This way. I can feel it, Anara urged, racing forward into the heart of the structure while Lior followed with a balance of caution and admiration. As they navigated through the intricacies of the ancient architecture, they arrived in a vast chamber, illuminated by an ethereal glow that emanated from a pedestal set in the center. Crystals jutted from the ground like stalagmites, catching the light in shifting hues. The air felt thick with the weight of history, and Anara's heart raced as she took in the sight before them. There, the Genesis Nexus, Anara exclaimed, pointing towards a crystalline artifact pulsating with energy at the center. But as her gaze locked onto the Nexus, it unleashed a violent wave of force that threw her backward. A tremor rumbled through the chamber, causing dust and debris to cascade from the ceiling. Anara, Lior's voice cracked through the chaos as he lunged toward her, helping her to her feet. What just happened? I don't know, she stammered, shaking off the disorientation, but deep down, a cautious thrill began to form. It feels like it's responding to me? They say the Genesis Nexus is a bridge between our world and others, Lior mused as he cautiously approached the pedestal, his hand hovering in the air just above the artifact. But have we awakened something best left asleep? He reached out and touched the crystalline structure. In that instant, the room erupted with a brilliant light, swirls of energy dancing around them, momentarily blinding them. Visions of the past unfolded before Anara's eyes. Scenes of a civilization thriving, their discoveries, their unity, and ultimately, their downfall. As the vision subsided, Lior pulled his hand back, and they stared at the nexus, uncertainty etched on their faces. "What does this mean? We need to figure it out quickly," Anara said, her breath quickening as the implications sunk in. The shrill alarms vibrated through the ship's hull, a manic chorus that underscored the urgency of the moment. Anara gripped the control panel, her fingers trembling as she scanned the holographic displays flashing around her. The ethereal glow illuminated the cockpit, revealing the storming galaxies outside, stark against the clamor enveloping them. The Zorvak ships, sleek, ominous, and unrelenting, were encroaching on the Earth, their dark silhouettes blending into the starlit void. "Anara, we're out of time." Lior's voice cut through her racing thoughts, laced with an unsettling mix of determination and dread. "If we don't initiate the Nexus, it'll be too late." With every second ticking away, the weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon her. Anara understood that her dreams of harnessing the Nexus's formidable energy were no longer just for discovery. They had transformed into a desperate attempt to avert catastrophe. The chaotic beauty of their surroundings contrasted starkly with the impending doom looming closer, its shadows darkening the edges of the galaxy. They had barely survived their journey to the acquired artifact, but now they faced an enemy that thrived on division. Trust became an ephemeral whisper in the heat of turmoil. The earlier betrayal of Dr. Tarek had haunted their minds every step of the way back. Shadows would linger long after the battle ended. They had to fight against not just the Zorvaks but against the deep betrayal that gnawed at their resolve. "Activate the Nexus. Now, Lior," Anara demanded, her heart pulsating with a mix of adrenaline and fear. The very air surrounding them was charged with an energy she could practically taste, a potent elixir of hope suffused with a dark undertone of cost. The cockpit pulsed as Lior worked swiftly, his fingers gliding over the controls with practiced precision. "We're aiming for their command ship. If we can disrupt their leader, we might just throw them off until we can regroup." The atmosphere grew thick with tension as they navigated through the strategic formation of ships swarming the Earth. Each pulse of the ship's engine felt like a heartbeat, loud and frantic. Anara's mind raced as she thought about the many lives at stake, innocent people, families, and friends who didn't know how perilous the situation had become. "Life often hangs by a thread," she mused, half hidden beneath the chaos. "How many lives do we sacrifice to save others?" Her mind flipped through the ethical labyrinth of their situation, but desperate times demanded desperate measures. "Target locked," shouted Lior, snapping her back to the reality surrounding them. The sensor readings danced wildly across the dashboard, indicating the Zorvak ships were aligning for an attack. "Anara, are you ready? This technology is untested. What if it doesn't work?" Desperation heightened her resolve. "We don't have a choice. We do it now." With an explosive surge of energy, she reached out, her essence melding with the Nexus's dormant power. It was like stepping into an electric current, intense, invigorating, and terrifying. The warm glow enveloped her in a cocoon of vivid colors, the walls of reality blurring around her as she allowed the ancient force to course through her veins. She felt the whispers of the universe around her, threading together all that had come before, a tapestry of history woven with the struggles of countless civilizations. In that electrifying moment of connection, she understood. The Nexus wasn't just a weapon, it was a key to awakening potential buried in the hearts of every being. The flames of unity and courage ignited within her, and she painted a visceral picture in her mind of her allies, their faces illuminated by determination, ready to stand united against the encroaching darkness. Now, a surge of power erupted from Anara, a brilliant wave of light manifesting from the Nexus, ricocheting toward the enemy fleet. The brilliance fractured the obsidian sky, illuminating the abyss with shimmering battles of her radiance. A gasp escaped Lior's lips as they witnessed the absurdity of light clashing against the dark, tangible, and chaotic matter of war. The Zorvaks scattered, confusion and panic rippling through them. Units of their fleet tumbled and careened through space, rendered disruptively off course by the unforeseen brightness tearing through their ranks. But then, none of it was without cost. Anara, Lior called, his voice a mix of awe and horror. The surge they had unleashed racked through her, a blast that felt like a double-edged sword, cutting through her consciousness. A thread of dread coiled in her gut as she witnessed the fallout. The Nexus was not just a conduit of energy. It absorbed her will, her very essence, and whatever was unleashed in this pursuit would demand its due. Pain ripped through her mind, unfurling like an ancient scroll. Images flashed, shadows of those lost in the tumult of warfare, heart-wrenching souls twisted in agony beneath the weight of a relentless cosmos. She clawed back to the present, but the ghosts were unyielding, calling her toward their fates, reminding her of the price of progress. Could this power truly forge a better future, or were they simply sowing the seeds of further destruction? Anara, snap out of it, Lior shouted, shaking her gently, urgency flooding his voice. Her vision flickered. The Nexus shone with a fierce light, but the brilliance was rapidly dimming. Lior, I can't hold it. She could feel the darkness clawing at the edges of her awareness, threatening to collapse the fragile barrier between the power of the Nexus and her waning consciousness. Concentrate, focus. His soothing presence pulled her from the abyss, reminding her of who they were fighting for, their unity anchoring them both. With a monumental effort, Anara channeled her will towards the light again. As she steadied her focus, the energy from the Nexus intensified, and a monumental wave surged forward, crashing against the nearest Zorvak ship. It disintegrated before them in a flash of unsettling brilliance, a specter of horror painted across the canvas of space. Yet, the victory tasted bittersweet as she felt pieces of herself shatter and fracture into the ether. The Zorvaks were retreating, but she felt a chilling darkness loom behind her, stretching in silence. In the heart of her triumph, Anara feared that the ultimate cost would awaken something even darker, something insatiable. As the waves of battle began to still, their ship lurched forward into the emptiness, surrounded by silent remnants of pulsating energy and ghostly fragments of enemies' ships. Just as hope glimmered on the horizon, the oppressive silence rang like a bell. The aftermath of devastation bore witness to unanswered questions. The aftermath hung heavy like a thick mist. Anara and Lior stood among the remnants of their home, people rejoicing yet mourning. The echoes of distant celebrations mingled with the silent cries of loss as they navigated through half-ruined structures, charred debris, and wounded soldiers. The sight of battered starships being repaired in the makeshift docks, with engineers working tirelessly, painted a picture of determination against the odds. "Look," Anara said, pointing to a group of soldiers who were helping each other stand, their bright blue uniforms marked with dirt and blood. "Everywhere, people are coming together." Lior nodded, his brow furrowed. "But can we truly trust this unity? Tariq's betrayal is a shadow we can't easily shake off." Anara felt a pang at the mention of her former colleague's treachery. Trust, much like a delicate glass, can break with a single crack. But it can also be reforged, Lior. We've seen that it's not just about saving the world. It's about standing together against every darkness that threatens us. As they began to rebuild, Anara glanced at the sky. Where once shadows had loomed, now stars blazed brightly. Each star seemed to pulse with energy, and with it, a promise of hope. But the feeling was not without its complications. The losses, both grievous and profound, loomed large in their hearts. Anara caught sight of an old friend, Marin, sitting alone amidst joyful reunions, his face a mask of sorrow. Marin, she called gently, kneeling beside him. You fought bravely. The battle was hard, but we gained our freedom. He looked up, his eyes filled with unshed tears. But at what cost? I lost so many. His words carried the weight of grief and the despair of the parents, brothers, and sisters who would never come home. Will unity be enough to mend what we've lost? And what about the Zorvaks? They'll be back, he continued. They won't accept defeat quietly. Maybe they learned something today, too, Anara replied, her voice steadying. We may not have defeated the Zorvaks with mere weapons. We showed them that humanity stands as one against the tide of darkness. If they seek to destroy that unity again, they will face a force unlike anything they have ever seen. Lior approached, listening intently. We have to ensure this unity survives, Anara. It starts with us, acknowledging our losses but also embracing who we are. A united front will change the battle's outcome. As the three of them sat there, others began to gather. The whispers of unity surged as the soldiers and scientists joined in. Some bandaged wounds. Others shared stories of those they had lost. Sparks of laughter entwined with tears. In that moment, a peculiar phenomenon took shape. They were not just individuals battling in isolation. They were a community built on shared experiences. Anara stood up, allowing the energy of their gathering to seep into her resolve. Let us honor those we've lost. Let us build not only stronger defenses but also stronger connections, and not just among ourselves but with our allies scattered across the galaxy. We'll no longer be a ragtag community but a coalition that pushes against all darkness. A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd. The murmurs of support turned into shouts of determination. Each person, now a thread in a larger fabric, felt empowered by shared purpose. The days that followed blended into a whirlwind of activity. Engineers modified starships and scientists refined technologies that incorporated knowledge from the Genesis Nexus. New military protocols were formed to ensure every soldier could rely on their neighbor, fostering not just camaraderie but an understanding that each life mattered. They were building, not just infrastructure but a new culture based on resilience and respect. Lior took charge of training new recruits, instilling in them not just skills but the ethos derived from their experience. Unity in the face of opposition, he yelled during drills, his voice echoing across the training yard. It isn't just about what's in your hands, it's what's in your heart. Anara spent her days teaching others about the Nexus, sharing the ancient knowledge hidden within its crystalline structures. Children and adults alike listened with awe as she explained how the energy they had unleashed had shown them that discovery could bring both peril and wonder. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in a magnificent cascade of color, Anara found herself on a balcony overlooking the city. The stars twinkled faintly overhead, and she couldn't help but feel a strange sense of nostalgia mixed with excitement. You okay? Lior approached, noticing her contemplative expression. Do you think we've really changed? Will this unity hold? She pondered aloud, anxiety creeping into her voice. What if this was just a fleeting moment, a spark in the dark? Change is a journey, Lior replied with a reassuring smile. Sometimes it takes trials, chaos, and despair for us to realize what truly matters. But from those ashes, we've risen stronger. Together. You're right, Anara agreed, straightening her posture. We have to keep the fire alive. Look, Lior said, pointing to the horizon where the sky began to blazon with colors again. The dawn is rising. As they both admired the sight, the idea of an ever-brightening future enveloped them. Anara felt an electrifying tingling in her fingertips. We're not done yet. There's still work to do and more challenges ahead. We need to be ready for them. Always, Lior affirmed. But I have faith that no matter what comes, we face it as one. In that moment, as the first rays of light ignited across New Terra, Anara understood that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with mysteries yet to unravel and alliances to strengthen. But at the core of their existence was an enduring bond: love, loyalty, and unity. As viewers embark on this journey with Anara and Lior, they will discover that adventure is not merely about battles fought but the bonds forged through adversity. Their story is a reminder that in a world often torn apart by fear and mistrust, the might of unity can illuminate the darkest of threats. What will happen next? Only time will tell, as the skies remain vast, and innumerable mysteries await in the one universe. As the final words echo, a whisper of wonder lingers, leaving a feeling of anticipation, and perhaps a lingering thrill that the journey has just begun. If you liked this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.